Okay. This is the patch 10.17 post-mortem, where we look back at the changes we made, talk about if we were happy with them or not. One thing to note, by the way, this will probably be the last post-mortem for a few patches. 10.18 is so small that I doubt we'll need to post-mortem it. 10.19 is the new set. We won't really post-mortem it because it's just we're releasing a new set. So this will be on hiatus until 10.20. So let's enjoy this one while we can. So I'm going to skip the hotfix for a second because that comes afterwards. The new Galaxy, Manatee's Delight. It's interesting. This was one of the earliest ones that was proposed. Because it's really obvious, right? Like, give everybody a spatula, see what happens. And I was kind of against it as the design lead, to be honest, just because it was like, yeah, it means everyone's going to play these 5 or 6 builds. But the reality is it's turned out pretty good. So, been pretty happy with it. And I think releasing it as late into the set as we did was definitely the right call. When people were more familiar with it. I think if we had released it much earlier, it would have been a mistake. So, yeah, happy with where this one has been. This one and Big Bang are kind of like really cool ways to end the set. So, it feels pretty good. Binary Star removed from the rotation. Players seem really disappointed by this. I've gotten a lot of hate mail over this one. This was players' favorite Galaxy, so we make mistakes sometimes, and obviously everything I just said about that was the opposite of the truth. I think most people were quite happy with Binary Star being removed, so hooray! Okay, Titans Resolve max stacks from 50 to 25. I think this was a very good change, especially for the long-term health of the game. Having a single item do double damage, because that's what it is at max stacks at 50, it's too much. It's too much power for an item, especially when that item is also saying do double damage and have 25 armor and MR. And, it's funny, the item probably would have been okay if Mech didn't exist, but at the same time, if Mech didn't exist, no one ever reaches max stacks, so it's just not fun. So having it be 25 has been a good change. You reach that max stacks quicker, it feels good, you get that cool growth, and 50% extra damage is much healthier to balance around than 100% damage. More champions can use this. I've actually seen this on things like Mordekaiser, Jace, Annie, and it can work out well. And honestly, this is thinking a little bit forward, but in Fates, it has opened up more diverse builds also, so that's been good. So pretty happy with how this change worked. Hand of Justice, damage and healing. This is a change I don't think was necessary, but will be necessary for a reason we'll talk about next week. But in the end, I think it was okay. It brought Mech down a peg. And our thought was at the time, the optimal build for Mech was Titans Resolve, Hand of Justice, QS. And we thought that nerfing these 2 items would bring Mech into line. That would be enough to bring Mech into line. It wasn't enough, which we'll talk about the hotfix in a minute. So in that regard, maybe it should have been 40%. But that being said, we're also not seeing Hand of Justice really be built on anyone else. It's one of those items that's like, I have a leftover tier and a glove. I guess I'll build Hand of Justice. But it's not like your first choice item, and it probably never will be due to its inconsistency. So it is what it is. But it's still nice to have that item actually be somewhat useful now. Sniper damage bonus going down. I think this was okay. This is the one change I'm less confident in. It definitely brought down Astro Sniper into a more realistic place. We've actually now seen Astro Sniper fall from S tier to A tier, I think. But is that really good? Because what's kind of replaced it was, the Star Guardians. And this is one of those things where, again, a single change can sort of cascade the power structure. Because Sniper was decent against Star Guardian and really good at, 1 or 2 shotting the Nico despite all the tank items. And now that it's less able to do that, we're running into Nico and Star Guardians kind of being the more premier S tier comp right now. So in the end, with how conservative we've been, I kind of wish we hadn't shipped this, but thankfully it hasn't been too destructive to the meta or anything like that. So, Jarvan, armor down by 5. I think this was a good fix. Looking at the data, he's still the best 1 cost in the game, just by even less of a margin. So, pretty happy with that. Yeah, someone in chat just pointed out Sniper, by the way, also hit Cybers, hit that Vayne a bit. I think that's true, but we're still seeing Cybers do very well, so that one I haven't felt as much, whereas the Astra Sniper seems to have been more impacted. Poppy Magic Resist up by 5. This is an example of a change where I kind of wish... It's hard, right? Because with every change, you want to be more aggressive, you want to do more, but if you do too much, then the meta shifts too much. Poppy's still the worst 1 cost in the game. So this 5 Magic Resist did not change that. 10 Magic Resist probably would have been fine. 5 Armor probably would have been okay too. But the reality is Poppy is just currently the worst in the game. Now, part of this is just her traits, because how often do you run 6 Star Guardian and Poppy? The answer is not very often. So, but yeah, this is the kind of change we do need to be making more in the future anyway, though. We need to be staying pretty conservative. Yeah. Gonna make this bigger, by the way, so you guys can see it. Well, apparently I'm not. There we go. Yeah. Blitzcrank. This change, I think, was really good for the game. I'm really happy we made this change. This was probably the most aggressive change that we had made, giving Blitzcrank 15 more armor to make Blitzcrank actually feel like a tank. 15 armor was a bit more aggressive than we normally would want to do this late in the set, but it worked out. It did buff up the Jinx comps a little bit, which was nice to see. It made Chrono be a little bit better. This was a good change. So I'm really happy we did this change. Cassiopeia getting 500 more at 3-star. This change, again, I file this under sort of the cowards approach right now, where it's just like, yeah, it's fine. 3-star Cassio's a little better. Is anyone chasing 3-star Cassio right now? No. No, we're not seeing 3-star Cassio be a thing. And to be honest, we actually have basically seen Cassiopeia fall out of the meta. We'll talk about it tomorrow, but Cassiopeia is one of the 3 champions actually being changed in 1018, because she's just basically fallen out of the meta. So, kind of wish we'd done more this patch. Master Yi Chosen damage going down by 5. Now, because of the hotfix, it only happened at 1 and 2-star, so even though the patch notes say it happened at 3, it did not. This is a change... As far as changes go, this is literally the smallest it can be, right? Like, -5 spell damage on Master Yi. Interestingly enough, we have seen Master Yi comps fall out of the meta a little bit. They're still decent, but they're definitely weaker. Did we need to make this change? It's hard to say. It's really hard to say here, because at the same time, like, the riot, it's like, and again, this is what I mean by like the domino effect, right? Where it's like the sniper change allowed for Nico to be more powerful, which allowed for Star Guardians to be more powerful, which inherently weakened Master Yi. So I think this is an example of a change where I probably could have gotten away with not doing it and let everything else domino itself. And again, this is another argument for, like, should you really be changing 10 things at a time in a patch? Probably not. Nico, 3-star, going down by 50. This is a good change. I'm glad we did this change. Nico 3 was a terror, and she still is a terror. She's just less so of a terror. This is a good change. I do think Nico herself is a terror, and had we known where things gone, maybe this could have also been a 1 and 2-star nerf a little bit. Because let's be real, no one's playing Nico for the damage. You're playing Nico for the lockdown, and it is a lot of lockdown. You're playing her because she's tanky. She's probably the best single frontliner in the game right now. But this is a change I'm happy with, so yeah. Shaco armor down by 5. This is also another change I think is really good. Making Shaco be more vulnerable so that if you do target him, he goes down. I'm glad we did this change. Shaco's still a terror. This has felt like a healthy change. Riven was another one of the bigger changes where we gave her 50 health and 10 magic resist. Glad we did this. It made Riven a little better. Are we seeing Riven Sork be in the meta? No. Are we seeing Riven be a premier carry? No. Had I wish I'd done more here? Probably. Probably was safer to do more. Riven has enough built-in counters that I think we could have been more aggressive here. So I kind of wish I'd done 900 health, some extra armor, some extra MR. But again, when we're trying to be very careful with the world's meta coming up, I think this is the right kind of change. Directionally, it was correct. So, yeah. Gangplank. Oh, God, Gangplank. Gangplank was, again, at 450, 600. He was trash. Literally the worst 5 cost in the game. At 550, 700, became the best 5 cost in the game. At 525, 675, he's still the best 5 cost. Oh, no. Lulu passed him. So he's damn near the best. So again, I'm glad we made this change. Directionally, it's correct. I think at this point, Gangplank is probably as good and balanced as he's ever going to be. Gangplank is... like, he is what he is, right? He's a big, giant AoE that does a ton of damage, and if you have Demolitionist and some Mercenary upgrades and a Death Cap and a GA, it blows up your whole team. That's what Gangplank was always designed to do. And so he's doing that. He's doing that, and he's doing that fairly. There are counters. You can build Mystics. You can Zephyr him. You can Shroud him. There are some challenges, but he's really powerful, which 5 costs are supposed to be powerful. So sometimes it feels bad to lose to 5 costs. I hear you, but I'm glad we made this change. And to be honest, I think it was actually the right amount. I don't think I would have gone to 500, 650. Otherwise, the payoff wouldn't have been worth. So pretty happy with where Gangplank ended up. Finally was Xerath. Xerath needed a small buff. We liked the idea of him still being this glass cannon, that if he casts, things start dying. So we buffed his spell damage by about 10%. 10% is a pretty big buff. And sure enough, it worked. Like, he's no longer the worst 5 cost in the game. Hooray! He's right where he should be. He's probably not the most reliable 5 cost, but if you have that QS and the Janna and the Ginsus, he's really strong and blows up teams. So I was really happy with this change. This one worked well. Xerath is probably, again, about as good as he's ever going to be with the limitations of his traits. So that was cool to see. So after we shipped all this, what we ended up with was a meta where everyone was playing Mech. And the problem with the way they were playing Mech, the really unhealthy way they were... because, like, Mech being good is not a problem, right? Mech is a legitimate comp. It should be fine to be okay. The problem we had with Mech was it was way too easy to go to 6, spend all your gold, and just, like, hope I hit the Fizz. And if I do hit the Fizz, even with 0 gold left, guess what? I'm probably on a 6-game win streak and get back up. And if not, then I just fast 8th. That kind of, like, crazy high rolly jump in power is not okay. And so we wanted to address that. So we did the one hotfix. I really wish we didn't have to do hotfixes, but we did. And by the way, I really liked players' reaction to this hotfix because you could tell who didn't read the tweet and who doesn't actually understand math. Because everyone looked at this and they saw 2200 plus 50% becomes 1500 plus 65%. And everyone's like, that's a massive change. That kills Mech. I can't believe they do this. This is terrible. And it was like, literally in the tweet was like the math that showed you the actual change. But no one read that. And if you like took 5 seconds to like math this out on paper, you could find out it wasn't a big change. The change was we nerfed the lower level ones so that when you hit 6 and you rolled down and found that Fizz, it wasn't as big a spike. But actually, once you 2-starred all your pilots, it was basically the same. It lost a little AD. And sure enough, now we see Mech in a healthier spot, which is like, if you hit it, cool, it's a small spike. You still have to level up those pilots, and if you do, it's a good playable comp. It's pretty close. I think, like, I know Bunny has it in the S tier, so it's like, it's still really damn good, but it's now not just like a free win when you hit that Fizz. So I was happy with this change, happy with it went down. And honestly, the lesson for me here is how do I help players understand it more? Because, yeah. So that is it for 10.17. Overall, it's nice that the game is in this point where we can be light with patches. We can just nudge things a little bit, and it's in a good spot. Now, one of the crazy things I'm personally struggling with, and this is something I just need to work on, less as a developer and more as a player, is like when the meta is in a good spot, the game feels very samey. And so it has felt like we've kind of been in the same meta for like 6 weeks now, which is interesting to think about. The Galaxies, I think, have helped a lot here. But yeah, it's just felt like the power structure is very similar, which is good for people who play like a few games a week. Not as great for people who are trying to play like 50 games a week. So something to think about from a design perspective. So, all right, that is going to do it for this one. As I said, this is the last post-mortem for at least two no 10.18, no 10.19, yes 10.20. So about 6 weeks. Hopefully you've enjoyed Galaxies. We got one more patch to go. That's going to do it for me this time. As always, if these videos are useful, let me know and I'll keep doing them. Otherwise, I won't because it takes time. All right, that's going to do it for now. Take it easy.